The stories that you're going to hear tonight are a collection of stories drawn from the Freedom and Captivity Archive, which is an archive that is held at the Maine Historical Society of stories submitted by Mainers about their involvement in or how they have been impacted by Maine's criminal legal system and incarceration. The Freedom and Captivity team have read through all of the stories in the archive. So far there's about 100, and anybody is invited to submit your story. Again, there's information in the back for how you can submit a story if you have a story that you'd like to tell. We've read through all the stories, and we excerpted selections from the stories to curate them into a staged reading, which is what we're going to present to you today. These are real stories from real Mainers impacted by our prison system. The performance discusses mature topics and includes adult language that may not be suitable for all audiences. Graphic descriptions of physical, mental, and sexual abuse, death and dying, drugs, alcohol, and substance abuse, and brutality by prison guards are included.
When Dan was transferred from the maximum security prison to the minimum security prison, COVID restrictions required new transfers to quarantine for 3 days. Dan was on sensory overload. He hadn't seen a car or even a road for a decade, so he spent the 3 days of his quarantine staring out the window at the road that runs just in front of the prison, just watching the traffic. He hadn't adjusted to the new rules of the minimum security prison.
2 or 3 years here, that's a piece of cake. Find a good job and just keep my head down. Oh man, it was good to see Brandon when I got here. Maybe I'll get into that dog program he's in. Pretty soon I'll find a good routine and the time will start to fly by. 2 or 3 more years, I can do that. Oh man, there goes Brandon now with his dog. I think he calls that dog Chewy. Wait, what's he doing walking out in the parking lot? He's just right out among the staff vehicles? I wonder if anyone sees him. Where is he going? Is he heading for the road? Isn't that road a gun line? Oh my God, he's crossing the road?
It's still crazy to me that I'm allowed to walk freely like this. The first time I crossed this road, I was in a full panic thinking, for sure this is a setup, and they're gonna try to say that I tried to escape. If I hadn't seen other guys do it before me, I wouldn't have trusted the officer when he told me, head up the hill. It's actually a really weird thing to think about the last 11 years of my life behind the fences and the barbed wire of the maximum security prison. Then to come down the road just half a mile to the minimum security prison without fences, without the constant surveillance and supervision, and with society right here in view. I can't even tell you how many times I've been walking Chewy around or sitting in the field and just watching cars pass by on this very road, imagining about the life of every single person who passed by, and imagining what is a normal life actually even like? I found myself wondering about the stories of these people. Who are they? Where do they come from? And where are they traveling to? What are they going through today? Have they ever had their heart broken? Are they happy? I assume they know I am incarcerated because I'm standing in front of a minimum security prison. But what if these normal clothes and this gorgeous retriever make them think that I'm just another civilian? What do they think about me when they drive by? Sometimes I just want to scream out to them, hey there, I'm just a normal person just like you. I'm not scary. I'm a good person. And I'd love to talk about life, about anything with you. Although, that probably wouldn't go over very well after all.
Hey, did you see that guy back there with the dog?
Yeah, he's probably from the prison. I can't believe they don't have a fence.
Well, maybe he's just walking the facility dog for, like, emotional support.
That doesn't change who he is. That man could have done anything. Hurt someone, killed someone. You don't land in there for nothing, Maya.
Well, still, you don't know who he is or what sent him there. Maybe he had a hard life.
Don't start. You always want to turn monsters into misunderstood humans. I don't have that in me. Not anymore.
Well, I'm not saying he's harmless. I mean, I'm just saying, maybe he's in there for something he did like 20 years ago when he was like 18 or something. Maybe that dog's the first thing that's looked at him like, he's just a normal person.
Oh, well, he made his choice, and you don't get a second chance to unrob someone or undo a beating. I have to live with that every day, and you don't get to hug that out with a therapy dog.
Well, I'm not asking you to. I mean, I just think, if we stop seeing people as capable of change, then what's left? What does that say about us?
Sometimes I wish I could think like you, but it doesn't feel safe. You let your guard down, and it costs you.
No, I get that. I do. I saw his face. He looked lost, not dangerous, not today anyway.
That's the thing, Maya. You never really know which day they're going to decide to be dangerous again.
Yeah, or the day they never do.
Maya can't stop thinking of the look on that man's face while he walked his dog across the prison grounds. She can't let go of the ache in her sister's voice. She wants to learn more about people affected by Maine's prison system. An online search brings Maya to the Freedom and Captivity Archive, a collection of first-hand experiences of those affected by incarceration. One of the most common stories Maya finds in the archive are those about the impact of punishment and incarceration on children and young people.
Hello. This is a prepaid debit call from
Buddy.
an inmate from the Maine State Prison, 1. To accept this call, press 0. To refuse it. This call is from a correction facility and is subject to monitoring and recording. Thank you for using Global Tellink.
Hello?
Hello?
All right, so what's the story you're going to tell me?
Well, I guess I'm going to tell you a story about me going to court and finding something out that I didn't ever know. So I went down to Lincoln County Courthouse after I was already sentenced. I think it was for buying something, and I went down there with 2 armed transport officers from Lincoln County Jail that I knew pretty much since I was a little kid. And we got down to the courthouse, and obviously I know people there. I know the clerk of courts. I know, so I have them check on my fines, and this woman comes around the corner with another woman, and she starts talking hella shit to me, telling me she hopes that I get raped in prison, and just a bunch of dirty, filthy shit like that. And the transport officer, Donnie Smith, got real, defensive and motion, snapped at her, really, really bad. And Donnie Smith, he was officer, got really upset. And I was like, Donnie, it's all right, come on, let's let it go. And he walked me back down to the cruiser, and he was really upset, emotional. And he said to me that he was sorry, that they were sorry. And I didn't know what he meant. So I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, we never give you a chance. You was a kid, and we didn't try to give you rehab or any help because you wouldn't go upstairs and cooperate with them. And what he means by that MDA, Jim Pease and Jason Pease, they're the lead detectives down here at MDA, and they're officers up there. And that's what they did. The people that went up there and told and cooperated, they helped with them rehab or, helped them out. And I was just a kid. I was 15 years old, and I just, I didn't go up there and tell anything. So I never got any help. They always just threw the K away, and he apologized for that. And he said that he was sorry, and it really just, I don't know, it struck home. I wasn't expecting that, and I never heard that before, and it was the transport officer that seen me grow up as a kid, It was really, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but, it was emotional, I guess, and he was emotional, and I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting him to get defensive and stick up for me, and I wasn't expecting him to say all that to me. Is the truth, yeah. Should I have to go up and tell on someone to get help? I don't believe that's true, but that's just the way it works. No one cared. It's just the way how it is, I guess.
I grew up around older kids, some who were close relatives. When you're around older people every day, it makes you believe you're older. And so you try to act older. I remember the summer of 5th grade, some teenagers talked me into stealing a truck. Of course we got caught, or at least I did. And I took all the blame and was sent to the youth prison. I was sentenced to a 60-credit program. Now, credits were earned by going to school, work, or group activities, and once I earned the 60 points, I was released to the same place I came from. The same friends, the same older kids. I was sent back to the prison within 6 months, and this time with a 75-credit program. I did the time, I got released to the same place I came from, same friends, same older kids, and soon I was back at the prison with a 120-credit sentence. Now this time, I escaped by hopping the fence. I was gone for, about a week before they caught me and they brought me back. And I was in and out of prison until I was 17 years old. Guards would throw our food on the floor and tell us if we were really hungry, we'd still eat it. They'd line us up for showers and stare at us in our underwear, making comments about our bodies. We were allotted 10 squares of toilet paper a day. We were beaten. We were abused and put in and out of restraints, in and out of solitary confinement. After so much time in my childhood incarcerated, I didn't know how to be around other kids. I felt like an outcast, like I didn't know how to function. I'd act up, I'd get sent to the office, and then back to corrections.
Yeah, I hear that, man. I was first incarcerated at 12 or 13, maybe even younger. I don't really recall. I grew up poor and my sister was pregnant. We had nothing to support her and her baby. So I stole money out of a safe from a local business. I was caught and I was incarcerated. It was my first time away from home and I was scared. I was placed in segregation at the youth prison. I felt like I was trapped in a horror movie. They had this old restraint chair. It's different from what they use nowadays. But they could strap someone in while they were handcuffed from behind. It forced you to sit on your own cuffed hands. This is very painful. Me and 7 other boys, we were placed in seg for our behavior. There were 2 officers in this unit, 2 of the biggest men I've ever seen. Very, very intimidating. These officers were loud, mean, cruel, vicious, ruthless, and sick. And they were there 5 days a week. We were just kids. Not one of us deserved what they did to us, nor does anyone in this world. The officers would cuff us and bring us to the restraint chair. When they popped the cell door, they would rush in and brutalize us real quick, hard and as fast as they could. The back room where the restraint chair was kept was where the real pain and suffering began. Other kids still in their cells couldn't see what was happening, but we could hear everything that went on back there. The screams were so loud, they were heart-piercing. The sound of flesh hitting flesh. And worst of all was the gagging or choking sounds and the sounds of bodies slapping together, combined with the screams and the pleas of kids begging for it to stop. There were 8 of us down there. We were all tortured, degraded, sexually assaulted, and made to feel and think that it was our own fault, that we were worthless. We were just kids.
Yeah, it's embarrassing to talk about. That's one thing I think people should know. I think most people might say, good, you should be embarrassed by being incarcerated, but I don't really mean it that way. I mean, the details of my incarceration process are embarrassing. You know, I worked part-time at a marina and then on the weekends with my dad putting in swimming pools. And then after I graduated from high school, I got an apartment with my girlfriend. I guess what I mean to say is I wasn't causing a bunch of trouble. I didn't think of myself as a criminal. I wasn't bad. And on the day I was arrested, I didn't have anything illegal on me. No drugs, no weapons, nothing like that. The officer simply said I smelled like weed. And for some reason, the system thinks it's completely normal for me to go driving to work at 7 a.m., being in jail at 8 a.m., being told to take off all my clothes, turn around, and spread my butt cheeks apart. I think most people just block that out. I know I did. And when they tell you in the booking process to take off all your clothes, they do it in such a way that it makes you feel like there's something wrong with you and not with them or the system. I mean, I'm human one minute, an object the next, and then shortly after that, I'm told I can be human again? Incarceration is strange.
There's a saying that when a person gets sentenced to prison, their whole family serves time. A family's ability to love, care, and stay connected is destroyed. The impact on community and society is huge, especially since almost half of the American population has had an incarcerated family member.
At one point in my life, my son, my husband, and my brother were all incarcerated at the same time. It's hard for me to try to explain it to someone who's never experienced having a loved one who's incarcerated. I end up in my head and frustrated and resort to saying things like, yeah, it really sucks, that sort of thing. But what does that mean, and how much does that actually help a person to understand? You just feel stuck. That's what I end up telling people who ask me about it. Most people will try to say consoling things like, you're so strong, or I don't know how you did it. But I don't know, it's just something you have to get through. It's hard to talk about.
I wish more people knew how heartbreaking it is to see a loved one in prison. One thing that stands out in my memory is visiting on the other side of the glass and pressing our hands up. That separation made it feel like there were worlds between us. It's so easy for a person incarcerated to lose connection to the outside world. There was a point where I was able to sit across from my dad in the visitor room. He touched my arm, and when I saw the guard's response, I grew fearful. He knew he wasn't supposed to touch me, but my dad had always hugged me goodnight, every night. Being there and not being able to touch him was heartbreaking.
One of the difficult things about having loved ones incarcerated is the inability to show love in the same way. Somehow humanity is removed from it, and often everything just gets boiled down to money. When my brother was in county jail, it was 75 cents per minute and $3.50 to connect to out-of-state numbers. I don't have a lot of money, but I remember one time he called me while I was driving through a bad service area. I was so excited to see the county jail's number come up. He seemed so happy to hear my voice for the first time in months. Then we were disconnected. He called me right back, and we didn't say much more than hello and complain about the phones when it was disconnected again. 5 long minutes later, he called again, and all the beautiful positivity in his voice had faded to match the monotone reality. If we get disconnected again, he said, I'm not going to call back. I just spent $10.50 of the $20 you sent me on connection fees. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's really hard to witness a loved one become so drained by the system.
Having a child in prison is a mind-breaking experience. I mean it, really. Like, I can't think or process it. Maybe it's because I'm getting older, but it just broke my brain. Like, it's like you're trying to solve a math problem that you don't know how to do, and you only have a certain amount of time before you lose something that you love. And you're just trying to figure out the problem, but you can't. And it just goes on like that every moment you're awake.
When you have a loved one who's incarcerated, you wish you could just have a moment of pause every now and then, and just to hold them, to embrace them. It might sound silly to some people, but I remember pressing a letter for my husband to my face with my eyes closed.
Many of the stories in the archive reveal the absurdity of our system of incarceration, rules that don't make sense, the wasteful expenditure of resources on incarceration, and cruelty for cruelty's sake.
Well, I was making a phone call, and I always had to be mindful because my parents lived in Arizona and there was a 3 hours difference. So I was always trying to coordinate that with rec time and when there wouldn't be a line waiting for the phone or whatever. So when I could, I'd skip lunch and call because it would still be, it would be like 9 o'clock in the morning, 8:30 in the morning, not too early for my parents. My mother, father were in their 80s. And so I got to the phone one day, was having my phone call, and Officer Damien, an older gentleman who'd been at the Women's Center for quite some time and known to be intentionally difficult. And adding to his sort of sinister personality, he only had one eye. And so the glasses that he wore, one side was blacked out with sort of a bridge covering part of his face. And so I'm on the phone with my mom. I can see him coming. He's completing his check, right? Every 30 minutes, they walk through the entire prison and look in all the places, all the cells, just to make sure everybody was, where they were supposed to be and nothing nefarious was going on. And so I can see him coming. So the phone is right next door to one of the cells. And so I know that he has to come and practically stand right in front of me to look at this cell. So I have my head down because I don't want to acknowledge him. So he's practically right in front of me. And then all of a sudden, I sort of get this feeling, and I can see out of the corner of my eye, his arm raising up, and he reaches over and flicks the receiver on the phone. He laughs and walks past me, checking in on the next cell. And I'm like, Mom, are you still there? Because I wasn't sure if he hung up on us. And thankfully she was, and she didn't know that that's what had happened. We continued our phone call, and I can hear his military boots, going down the end of the hallway, making that turn, because he's checking the cells on one side, gets to the end of the hall, turns around and starts checking the cells on the other side. So now he's walking up behind me. I'm still on the phone, talking to my mom, trying to ignore this person. And what I didn't know, because I couldn't see, is he came up behind me, flipped the receiver again, laughed, and then went on to check another part of the facility. And that time, he disconnected me and my mom. And because lunch is just before noon count lockup, just as soon as he finished that and went back to the desk, he called lockup. And so I couldn't even call my mom back and say, I didn't hang up on you intentionally. So I had to sit through that whole damn count time, over an hour, waiting to call my mother back. And then, of course, when they let us out, there's always a line for the damn phone.
My experience with incarceration began in the juvenile system. I'm 35 years old now, but I was 16 the first time I went to Long Creek. I was sexually abused as a child and always in survival mode. I numbed my feelings and dissociated from them because of what was going on. I was on the run at 17. I ended up getting caught, so the judge committed me to Long Creek until my 18th birthday. When I was released, it wasn't long before I blacked out from alcohol. I stole a vehicle, I broke into someone's home, I sat at their kitchen table and stole some keys. I only know these details from police reports because I couldn't remember what I had done. I dropped my ID, and that's how they knew it was me. I was convicted and completed my sentence at the Androscoggin County Jail. When I was released this time, I ran because that's what I knew. I had an active warrant in Maine, so I went south. The U.S. Marshal Service came and got me in Texas. We rode from Texas to Maine in a paddy wagon. The girls were in the front cage, and the men were in the back. We were shackled and handcuffed, but there were no seatbelts, just metal bench to sit on. It took us 2 weeks to get back to Maine. We stopped at jails for restrooms and food in Mississippi, Florida, and then Virginia, where we slid on black ice. The van rolled, and a rescue team had to cut the van open to get us out. Without seatbelts, shackled and handcuffed, I hit my head, and my whole body was covered with bruises. We were sent to the hospital, but soon we were off again in another paddy wagon. 2 weeks later, I was dropped off at the Androscoggin County Jail. I only had 90 days to serve, and with good time, I was released in 2 months. Seemed like a lot of trouble for such a short sentence.
Last year, 2023, July of 2023, when we were at that wannabe picnic that they gave us, there was one of the gentlemen that I've gotten close to at Maine State Prison through the hospice conferences was a very nice man named Greg. My kids call him the Cheese Man because of a story that he always told. I call him Greg the Plant Man because he established a love of plants. We love plants together because I used to be a plant lady when my kids were young, and I just kind of lost my green thumb. And Greg helped me get it back. Through the horticulture program that he helped with up at the prison. And that's over, years. This is since 2016. So I'm very good at plants. I have a whole window full of plants that have been gifted to me from Maine State Prison, from their events. Like when we go to some of these events, they'll have all plants are lined up all over the windows, and we all get to take them home as family members at the end. So we bring something home from there. We can't bring home our loved one, but we can bring home a plant. It's really nice. So last July, I went and Greg had gotten ill. It ended up being the last time that I saw Greg. And I knew it was going to be at that time. He was in a wheelchair. He was struggling. But he still had laugh and jokes for me and everything. And then when I went to leave, there was, I grabbed the plant off of the window. I was going to name this one Rufus because all my plants have names. And, saying bye to Leo and Greg and all the gentlemen in there and everything. And this guard comes up and says, "Ma'am, you can't take that plant." And I'm like, we always take plants. I'm like, of course I can take a plant. And he's a younger guard. He's newer. I ain't never seen this dude before in all the last decade or however long, 14 years now. I've never seen this kid. So I'm like, maybe he just don't know. I'm sorry. I am going to respectfully just take this plant and go and talk to the people at the front desk. Greg came over, wheeled over in his chair. Can you just let her take this plant, in memory of me? No. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm just going to take this. So I go out to the front desk, and the gentleman at the front desk was very less than kind. At first, just dismissed me, made me go over, stand on the side with me and my stupid little plant, wouldn't talk to me for a minute, checked out the rest of the people, and then waited until everybody was gone, and then gave me the business for trying to take this plant, and we can't do this and that. And I was emotional because I was trying to tell him, I'm like, Greg is dying. I'm like, can I just take home this little piece of, anyway. And so it's so silly to cry over, but it's not, so I couldn't take the damn plant home. And that plant and Greg both just stayed in there and died. Because they don't take care of the people, they don't take care of anything that's alive in there. So yeah. So last summer I lost Greg. And I lost Rufus. And because of that incident, I was banned from visiting any Maine State Department of Corrections facility. They banned me for going to visit, saying that I was a threat to security. Yeah. My big fucking hippie plant and people-loving self was a threat to security. And then just after that crushing moment, for them to then put down that hammer of, and now you can't see your baby brother. It was just so it felt so malicious. So malicious to say, no, you can't, you love people too much, so you can't see this one person that you love the most.
Because people in prison have been largely cut off from their families and their support systems, they find ways to take care of each other. And some, the lucky few, even find pathways toward healing.
If you're caught leaving the chow hall with anything you don't finish eating, they call it stealing. Many of us grew up sharing, but in prison, sharing is punishable. One of my friends now lost to overdose loved apples. One day I decided to try and steal one for her. We have a few ways to sneak food out. We put it down our pants, tuck it in our socks or in our bras, known as the prison purse. So one day, I put an apple in the waistband of my pants. When I stood up to leave, a staff member came around the corner just as the apple slid out of my waistband, down my leg, and rolled across the floor. Everyone laughed. Thankfully for me, the staff member laughed too. We scurried down the hall and avoided consequences. I did manage to take one apple and pulled it from my prison purse. Hopefully, she washed it before she ate it.
Yeah, I got a job in G-Pod, working in the laundry, and that was Ed's pod. I remember Ed only ever drank 1 cup of coffee a day. And after he got sick, I would make his coffee and I would take it to him. It felt like some small thing I could do for him, something to show him that I appreciated everything that he had taught me over the years. Ed died in prison, and that's a memory I carry inside of me to this day.
Yeah, in segregation, we call it the box, devoid of nearly all personal possessions, the prayer rug was my most prized possession. More than mere material, it was a portal. It was a tangible connection to my faith, a balm to the cruelty of prison life. You know, laid out there on that cold concrete floor of my cell, it transformed that tiny space into a sanctuary, a haven where I could experience something beyond myself. It was a constant reminder of my commitment to Islam, a source of hope and strength in a setting that was designed to diminish both.
Hey, I'm the first person in my family to go to college. I'm getting a degree in psychology. And so deciding to stay clean and get an education got me out of the maximum security unit and into a medium one. So I was in a new building and I had new lifestyle. I was creating something positive, got a job, started creating art again. And it opened up my worldview. I could envision goals and things for my life that I never thought was possible before. And it gave me the strength and motivation to finally come off Suboxone.
Well, although the road ahead is still long, I learned something vital. Healing isn't a straight line. It's messy and it's painful. It often feels like you're taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Every day, I choose to fight. I get up, I work through the pain, the voices, the guilt, and I feel like I'm finally winning. I hope I can build something beautiful out of this wreckage.
I didn't realize how much shame I had because I was incarcerated and like embarrassment. So part of the work release is I would go to this horse farm right across the street, a horse rescue. And like a lot of the people knew that I was incarcerated, but I was wearing regular clothes, volunteer shirt, just like they were, or an employee shirt when I was employed by them. So I'd be out there, you know, we'd go through with our wheelbarrows and pick the paddocks, play with the horses, do whatever volunteer duties or duties that needed to be done. And there was this woman that I met named Marcy, and she was like the most amazing woman, and I swear she's my soul sister. And, you know, she was quite a bit older than me, but like, and her husband's a lawyer. She worked at his law firm. So completely different sides of the street. And, you know, I would bring in bouquets and vegetables from my gardens that I was, so she had no idea I was in prison. And like, there was a period of time, like, that I was going to be stopping my time there and moving on to actually working outside of, that realm. And she kept asking me for my phone number. She knew the time was coming. And I just don't lie, and I'm not good at it. Like the old me, I could probably swindle anybody, but I was like, it just came out, I don't have a phone. And then I avoided it. And then I would blow her off. This happened 3 weeks in a row. And then finally I was like, I feel so bad that how I'm making her feel, I'm sacrificing her feelings for my own, I guess, shame. And so I said to her, we're in the field and, we were playing with our favorite horses, just scratching them, playing with them, loving on them. And I was like, Marcy, I got to tell you something. She's like, oh my God, what? She was so sweet. And I said, Marcy, I don't have a phone number because I live across the street at the prison. And she starts crying. I start crying. And she's like, she had so much empathy for me. But it's the shame that I felt that this person wouldn't be my friend. And she was. She loved me so much. Whenever she left after we volunteered, she gave me a hug, told me she loved me and that she'd see me next week. And it's just amazing that I was willing to risk having that type of person in my life because I was that ashamed.
So this happened. It's hard to talk about. I was traveling alone on a hike on a sunny Sunday afternoon, and I was attacked by a masked man. He was carrying a long, serrated knife. He put a plastic bag over my head. It was blue, like the kind you get at the grocery store. And he dragged me into a ditch by a river and raped me. Then he told me not to move and left me there. My trauma around that lasted decades. When I came to Maine and began working at the University of Maine at Augusta, the director of the prison education program at the time asked me if I would be willing to teach classes on the inside. I had no desire nor even any curiosity about such a place, yet she encouraged me to talk to colleagues who had been teaching there, and they were all unequivocally very enthusiastic about teaching. So I agreed to try, and I haven't stopped going in ever since. I bring in that early trauma because in many ways, working at the prison healed me. I don't know what the story of the man was who chose to harm me, to violate me, but he had a story. All the men I've met have a story. Some made tragic choices, some were high, others abused, frightened, others had psychic breaks they can't even remember. But we all have a story, and when those stories interact, we're all reminded of our shared humanity. Some of the men I first knew inside those walls are now released. They're fathers, sons, brothers, carpenters, caregivers, and humanists. Many work as volunteers on social justice issues, including incarceration. Others will not be released in my lifetime. This is a travesty. Our sentencing system is so draconian that it goes against the moral fiber of a nation that touts itself to be Christian, to believe in forgiveness and second chances. Everyone is worthy of a second chance of redemption. It's a waste of human lives and potential that so many people are locked up in a system that functions to keep them subordinate while other people make their careers as guards of others, of people who could be their neighbors, their brothers and sisters, their sons and daughters.
I've been both a victim and a perpetrator.
The judge sentenced me to therapy instead of prison.
Incarceration does nothing to heal our communities.
Our society values independence, but the truth is, nobody gets through this life alone. Caring for people is a crucial part of maintaining our humanity. And although we all have different life experiences, we all share the experience of being human. And if the Department of Corrections really wanted us to be rehabilitated, they'd allow us to have caring relationships with the people we love.
Volunteers who care too much are often banned.
Supermax was 23-hour-a-day lockdown. Shit and blood everywhere, and the smell of mace hung in the air.
I was a kid, and they sent me to 23-hour lock-in for my tears. I missed my mom.
Yeah, I'm convinced the only reason that the guards came to work was to take out their frustration on us kids, all of their life problems on us boys. And we were just kids.
You know, I'm 32 years old, and I've never had a license, paid taxes, had cable, or my own place to live. I've been shot, I've been stabbed and jumped. I've been homeless. I'm begging for help.
I wish people knew that the smallest pieces of inclusion mean so much to someone who's incarcerated.
I was incarcerated for most of my childhood. The only way I knew how to handle any kind of grief or emotion was to be held down and restrained.
Prison is a machine designed to strip away individuality. From the moment you enter, the process begins. You're assigned a number, a uniform, a routine. Your name becomes an afterthought, replaced by the dehumanizing term inmate, and now the insulting term resident.
It felt like such a privilege to get to know those people, but it was also so heartbreaking to find out that most of them were lifers, wrapped up in the system since they were children. No therapy, no diversionary programs, no public defenders.
Because of my experience being incarcerated, I know the system doesn't care about rehabilitation, only punishment. It sets people up to fail. I don't want to fail anymore.
Because of being incarcerated, I have more empathy and love for all people.
Because of my time working in the prison system, I've become very aware of the lack of mental health and social support services available to people in Maine.
Because of my dad's incarceration, I grew up feeling shame I didn't even understand.
Because of my experience being the loved one of somebody incarcerated, I see the world through a different lens. People think there's a huge margin between offenders and the rest of the community, but there's not. The only thing that separates us from them is trauma and life experience.
Because I was incarcerated, I get so defensive so quickly, it's heartbreaking. I have a 10-minute monologue of potentially redeeming achievements, ready to deploy every time I meet a new person. Oh, well, I was incarcerated for a little over 10 years, and I did this, and I did that. Please give me a chance to be viewed as human again. Thank you for your time.
Because of my experience with incarceration, I'm an activist for prison education and reform, for parole, restorative justice, youth programming, and above all, redemption. There is a better way to hold people accountable for harm. We in Maine could be leaders of a radical shift to de-escalate our propensity to judge and sentence,
And instead, to listen and repair.